Thank you for joining us today for the Conformed to Christ podcast, where we seek to engage the mind, affect the heart, and call people to follow Christ. My name is George Mays. Here I am with Jay Jones, and this is Free for All Friday.
Good morning. How's it going?
It's going all right. How you doing?
I'm very tired, George.
Are you?
I am very, very, very tired today.
Why are you so tired today?
Well, let me just tell you about my nighttime adventures.
Oh, okay.
That explains this bang here.
All right.
I've been accused of like being sponsored by people. Bang.
Yeah.
0 sugar, 250 milligrams of caffeine, 0 calories. Tastes delicious. There you go. Essential today. So like 1:30 a.m., my dog goes nuts. My Cane Corso, like, barks so loud it shakes the ground. Like the erratic barking, you know. Angie's like, Jay, I think someone's trying to steal our cars.
Mm-hmm.
So I jump out of bed, get strapped up, put my headlamp on. I'm like, oh, I need my shorts. Put my shorts on real quick. Run out, clear the living room. No one's in the living room, but my dog is there. She's got the big eyes, you know, like you ever see like when a wolf attacks something, his eyes are real big. And she's going nuts. She's like in between the kids' rooms in the hallway, and she's barking so loud. And I'm like, someone's outside. Like, for real, someone is outside. So I look outside. I open the door. I get ready to come out, and there's the trash man.
Mm-hmm.
Picking up my trash at 1:30, George.
Wow.
In the garbage truck. Why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? He's lucky I didn't let the dog out. But I didn't. So, you know, I go back in after that little adrenaline surge. Go to sleep somehow. I went to sleep. I don't really know how. About 2:45, so maybe an hour later. And he's like, Jay, there's 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts coming. You got to drop the nets. Because we've got baseball nets outside, you know?
Uh-huh.
And they'll bend the poles and break. So I run out there, and it was really weird. Huh, Larry? Yeah. Did you know that wind came in? Did you even know it?
Mm-mm.
Well, I don't know what it was called. What's it called, Larry? It's a gust front. Some gust front came in, and it was really weird. So I run out there, drop the nets, get the poles, drop all the poles, and then I run back inside, lay down, and of course by then I cannot go to sleep. So by the time I went to sleep, it was probably after 4 a.m.
I gotcha.
So bang.
Okay.
For when you didn't go to sleep till 4 a.m.
Is that the new tag?
Yeah.
Okay. I like it.
So my thinking might not be as crisp today.
Oh, boy. Buckle up, everyone.
Yeah.
I don't.
So there's my night. Did you have a good night?
I was fine. Yeah.
Good.
No,
I'm glad.
No worries. I don't know. I don't know if she wants me telling this. She doesn't remember.
Usually, if you have to start with that, you usually should just stop.
I know, but I'm gonna go ahead anyway.
Oh, no.
I guess last night I rolled over, and I don't know if I moved my arms or what, and I guess I hit Julia in the face while she was sleeping, and she was pretty upset with me. But this morning she doesn't remember doing that at all.
Really?
So, no.
That's funny.
Sorry, Julia.
Dropped an elbow on her.
Yeah.
Oh, my. Well, Free for All Friday, George, I got something to start with, because I know what we're going to get into today. We're going to continue this conversation on the abortion issue today, particularly in the criminalization front, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's kind of where the conversation is going now. We'll get to that in a second. But I got a TikTok for you. I know you love when I bring them in. It's about 2 minutes and 45 seconds long. I want you to watch it all. And I think it's good. You know, here's what I want to do with it. Let's be discerning, not just how strange this TikTok is, but to what is bad about it, like what's really bad and dangerous about it. All right, because we want to be discerning people, always guarding the gospel. You ready for this?
Okay.
All right.
Yes. All right. Oh, no.
Here we go.
Okay.
Let me try to make the most easy to understand video so you can understand the lie. NASA says the moon is 218,000 miles away. In millions of miles, that's 0.2 million miles away. NASA says that Mars is 220 million miles away. 220 million miles away is 1,000 times farther away than 0.2 million miles away. NASA says that we can't get back to the moon because we lost the technology, or the technology was greater back in 1969, or what else did they say? Oh yeah, the technology was destroyed in space travel. But they allegedly have a recording device, the Mars rover, on Mars, 220 million miles away. Okay? Let me get this straight, NASA. You can't get back to the moon, which is less than 1 million miles away, but you can get to Mars, that's 220 million miles away, and you claim you're going to be colonizing it in a few years. What? And you people buy this stuff? Just eat it up. Just eat it up. Eat it for breakfast. Let's also talk about this. The moon, it always shows us the same face. Therefore, that face is always tidally locked to Earth. We should have a recording device on the surface of the moon, because it's always facing us, that can record the Earth spin. Then there would be no more flat earthers, you see, because then they can see the Earth spinning from outer space. However, NASA can't do that, they won't do that, and they'll never do that because it's impossible. And why is it impossible? Because God placed a biblical firmament above us that SpaceX seems to be trying to tamper with. NASA calls this firmament the Van Allen belt, but it's the firmament listed in Genesis. I have a ton of pride in the Word of God. Listen, I bought the Globe Lie too. I have a ton of Star Wars movies. But I gave it all up when I learned the truth about our existence. Jesus Christ saves us all. He saved me. I'm a sinner. He'll save you. Just gotta wake up to the lies, guys, and turn the TV off. It's mind control.
There you go, George. There you go, bud. That's how to get this free for all started out right.
I mean, he had me there for a little bit. The whole not going to the moon, but going to Mars.
Uh-huh.
Okay, all right. He got me interested, and then he got real weird, real fast.
If you're listening, please just don't be that type of Christian. The problem with it,
but if you are, please make a TikTok so Jay can show it on here.
The problem with the whole video, I mean, it's dumb. First off, ridiculous. The flat earther stuff is bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
But to kind of tack on the gospel at the end, like, Jesus can save you. Like, I'm a sinner, Jesus can save you. What it's presented is Jesus can save you from the sin of believing in the globe Earth. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what it's presented as.
Right.
Like, don't believe the lies.
Don't believe the lies.
And so the gospel is just like, what is the gospel? If you're a non-believer, what do you take as the gospel from that video? Well, what you take away is
Christians are crazy flat earthers.
Yeah. And the gospel is Jesus can save you from believing in the lie of the globe Earth.
Right.
Like, that's how bad the presentation was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
better to not make anything and keep your mouth shut than to,
Right.
because it's hard for us to imagine how people don't know stuff. Like they don't know what the word sin means even. They don't even know who Jesus is. They don't know those days are gone when you could presume someone knows what the word sin is and they know what you mean when you say Jesus. They don't. So when you tell them Jesus saves from sin, and he'll save you from the lies, like you got to be careful. Listen to how you sound, right? If you're going to give a gospel presentation, then give one. If you're going to do something like that, don't do it at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm with you, Jay. I'm with you.
Can you believe that we live in this world, George?
Yeah.
What other ways, though?
I thought he was going to, at first, I thought that was going to be a blood moon
A blood moon video?
TikTok.
Yeah. What other things can you think, like, all right, Christians are not good at presenting the gospel. How and in what ways, other than that, may we present a false gospel?
I think a lot of Christians, they get caught up in the sharing your testimony, and they give their testimony, but they don't actually share the gospel.
So, like, I was unhappy and depressed, and then now I'm happy.
I asked Jesus into my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew I was a sinner.
Yeah.
And it's very personalized, but
Right.
there's no propositional statements that are being
Yeah.
made. The gospel is objective facts.
Right.
It's objective truth.
Mm-hmm.
So your testimony is a good segue into the gospel,
Yes.
but your testimony itself is not the gospel.
Yeah.
So we need to be very careful to distinguish between the two. And
Mhm.
if you're sharing your testimony, that's great. I mean, tell people about what God has done for you in Christ, but also tell them
The
the
gospel.
objective truths of the gospel
The facts.
that can affect their life also.
Right.
So I think we've gotten this this tell your story kind of mentality,
Mm-hmm.
and we've kind of muddied the gospel, the actual gospel,
Mm-hmm.
through it.
Right.
So this is not a don't tell your testimony. It's a make sure that you're giving the gospel
Mm-hmm.
as you tell your testimony.
Yeah. So maybe a good refresher. The elements that you need in a gospel, in a gospel presentation. Because
Right.
you're right. I think you're right. It happens, and not intentionally, but
Right.
it's your story. You're passionate about it, like, hey, and we all know the ones that are dramatic.
Mhm.
Like, I used to be an alcoholic. And
Oh, yeah.
This was my life, and I was running around with girls, and then I encountered Christ, and now I've left that, and I'm sober,
Right.
and I'm married, and I have a good family, and all the stuff that God's done for me. But
Right.
I think there are several, and why don't you walk us through them real quick, Giorgio? Let's give us a
Okay.
gospel refresher.
Okay.
And I think the best place is to simply start not with man, but start with who God is.
Right. You have to, and I think that part of that is we can't just assume that our culture knows who God is. Our culture has gotten to a point where there's a lot of spiritual people, but there's not a lot of people that understand the kind of the foundational truths about Christianity. And we especially in southwestern Oklahoma, we have to be sure that we don't assume that people know what we're talking about. So we have to start kind of with where Paul does in Acts chapter 17 on Mars Hill, that there is a God. There is one God, that he is the creator of all things, that he doesn't need anything, that he is self-sufficient, and he is holy, which means that he is involved with his creation, but he is not part of his creation. He is separated from his creation. I think we need to really emphasize who God is, that he is perfect, that he is righteous, that there is no sin in him, and that because of who he is as this sovereign, holy, righteous creator, that we are accountable to him. He's our king. So I think that's where we have to start, is that you are not an authority unto yourself. You are a creature created by this holy God, who is transcendent. He's other than you, and you then are held accountable to him. He tells you how to live.
Right.
Right. And then coming off of that, we get to the fact that he has told us how to live, and we haven't done it.
Yeah.
we haven't done what he has commanded us to do. He has given us general revelation. He has written his law on our hearts through the conscience, so we know there's right and wrong. Every culture knows it's wrong to murder. It's wrong to steal. It's wrong to lie. That these are just universal truths, and those universal truths, they don't arise out of accident. They arise because God has actually put that in us, so that we know right and wrong, and we know that we have
the moral argument.
We've rebelled against God.
The moral argument is, I mean, it's like God's given you a hanging curveball with anyone you ever talk to.
Right.
You have to use the law.
Yeah.
Use God's law.
Yeah, use God's law to
ask questions. And everyone will admit to feeling guilt over something.
Right.
Unless they're like just lying. But
yeah.
And if you feel guilt, where does that come from? Who are you guilty to?
Right.
It's powerful.
Is this just a bunch of chemicals that are firing off in your brain that make you feel this way, or is there actually something to it?
Yeah, I think
there some truth to it?
It's a great general grace of God, because post-fall he could have let people not even feel that,
right,
and left us in our own way,
right. But Paul says in Romans chapter 1 that everyone knows that there is a God. They know by looking around that there is a God, and they can know his character. They can know his attributes through what he has made. And they've rebelled against this God. And if he is the king, if he is everything that the Bible says he is, this good, holy, righteous creator who is over us, and he's given us his law, then there is judgment for us rebelling against God's law.
Right. Since
we have rebelled against God's law, we are under the curse. We're under the penalty of law breaking, which is death. And so we all deserve the justice and the wrath of God, not just in this life, but for all eternity. And if God had left us there, we would all perish. But God has done something for us that we could never do for ourselves by sending his own son to live a perfect life. He came in the flesh, fully God, fully man. He lived a perfect life under God's law. He never rebelled in either thoughts or desires or words or deeds. He lived a perfect life, and then he died. He was put to death by sinful men on a cross, not for his own sins, but for the sins of his people. And this was part of God's plan to redeem a people for himself by Christ being a substitute for us. And so Christ dies as a substitute, taking the judgment that we deserve on the cross.
Yeah. So if people are trying to catalog this in their mind on how to remember, you're on step 3.
Yeah. So there's God. There's God. God is holy. He's creator. He is the king. Man is under God, but we've rebelled against God's law. And so we are under the penalty of sin. God has sent Jesus.
God's act. Yeah.
God has done something for us by sending Jesus to not just die, but live. So he's lived a perfect life, fulfilling all of God's law, and then being put to death, not for his sin, but he is put to death, tasting the consequences of our sin.
Yeah.
So on the cross, God puts our sin on Jesus, and he punishes our sin on the cross. And Jesus dies. The wages of sin is death. But Jesus didn't stay dead.
He rose from the
On
dead.
the third day, he rises from the dead. This is God's stamp of approval that Jesus' death accomplished full salvation.
And it's
for
often
those
the
who
missing
trust in him.
element when people give a gospel. Sometimes they forget the resurrection of
And
the
Jesus is alive.
Mhm.
Jesus is alive. If he'd stayed dead, then nothing that we said about the cross could be true. Because Jesus didn't deserve to be put to death. If he
Yeah.
stayed dead, then that means that he suffered the consequences for his own sins. But he rose from the dead. God raised him from the dead. He is alive. And because he's alive, we know that the cross worked. We know that God actually did Jesus accomplished this work on the cross. God's wrath has been satisfied. And he's alive, which means that he is living and can save people.
dead.
I mean, he's not a dead savior; he's a living savior.
Yeah.
And he is the first fruits of new creation. When he walked out of the grave, this is God's redemptive work. It's broken into this present age. And he's ascended. He's seated at the right hand of the Father right now, and he's praying for his people right now. He helps them right now because he's not dead. He's alive. So those are the objective
And then there's
realities, but then you have to respond
That's
to
it.
it. So that's the gospel. The gospel is the good news of what God has done in Jesus. Now the fourth step is
Response.
you have to respond. This is good news, but how's it good news for you? It's not good news if you say, okay,
Right.
and go live your life.
Right.
It's only good news for you. It's only gospel for you if you respond. And the way in which you're supposed to respond is you acknowledge, I'm a sinner. You turn away from those sins, and you look to Jesus as your only hope, not your own works, not your own righteousness. Jesus alone. Jesus is He's the only way. He is your only hope, and you look to him in repentance and faith.
Yeah.
And then that good news is applied to you. It's applied to me.
God, man, Jesus response. And then to go on living in light of that truth. It's a little bit better news than you can learn that the earth isn't a globe.
That's right.
And God and Jesus will save you from your sin. Like, I don't know even what that even means.
The thing about it is it's really simple to communicate the gospel. Like, you can do it in those 4 steps. But in order for us to accurately and adequately communicate it so people understand, like, we're not just trying to get a response. We're not just trying to get, all right, say a prayer and Jesus will save you. Ask Jesus into your heart.
Save you from SpaceX.
Right. You have to take some time. Like, it does take a little bit of time to explain this. It's not a quick thing.
Yeah.
You can walk through a track and it can be really succinct, but the best tracks are not 2 pages long.
Right.
The best tracks, they devote some time to each of these because we're not just trying to get a decision. We're trying to accurately
You've got to understand first.
communicate it so you can understand, so that you can actually respond to it.
God-
This is the problem with topical sermons. These topical sermons that are 10 steps to a healthy marriage, and then at the end you just tag on if you want to trust Jesus, if you want to invite Jesus into your heart, walk this aisle, and someone will be down here to pray with you. What are you inviting them to? You haven't explained anything to them. You're just trying to get them to make a decision. But the entire sermon, you've told them there's 10 things that you can do, and you don't need Jesus to do these things.
Right.
So you can't just tag on the gospel at the end just to get a response. They have to understand, what are they responding to? Why do I need Jesus? And you have to take some time to explain that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, just that video, because everybody can put anything out today.
Right.
And that's the bad thing. Like we may do everything that we can diligently to be able to explain the gospel clearly. But all of your non-believing friends and family members are bombarded with stuff like this. Like they're on social media, they're running into people, and they think that Christianity is weird? Like what?
Well,
Like what do
let's
you?
be,
I mean, it's
let's be honest.
well, it's
It's
weird.
a little weird. It's weird to a natural man.
Sure, but that's not what I mean.
Yeah.
What I mean is you want them to be offended by the truth of the gospel,
Right.
not that you think Jesus will save you from the lies that NASA's telling.
Right. hmm
Like this is some bizarre stuff, you know?
Yeah. If you'll trust in Jesus, your eyes will be open to the globalist schemings
That's right.
of Bill Gates.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not how it works.
Or the Q conspiracy.
Right.
You'll understand, you'll
Right.
be enlightened to this stuff.
hmm
But yeah, you have to just be ready to correct a lot of people's misconceptions
hmm
about the gospel and what the gospel is. And you don't want to add anything to it so that it's gospel plus something else.
Right.
Right. So anyway, that's a good little refresher for the people to hear the gospel again.
Yeah.
You want to rehearse it all the time.
You want to preach the gospel to yourself because we'll forget.
That's true.
We need to be reminding ourselves of the gospel.
Well, we're 26 minutes in, George.
This is going to be a little bit of a long one because we got to get to this stuff. Well, there's some stuff that I want to talk about.
Okay.
So,
well, I've got a crazy Twitter video. Do you want me to show it, or do you want me to show it later?
Which one is this?
This is the I think it's the Senate Committee on Abortion.
Okay, I want to start here. I want to start here with this open letter, and this kind of segue into this. So,
right.
this is called an open letter to state lawmakers from America's leading pro-life organizations.
All right, so we need to explain the issue perhaps for people to understand. All right, so there was a bill of total abolition in Louisiana, the first one ever in history to make it out of committee.
Right.
They're all been killed in committee, and it will come as a shock that they're usually killed by pro-life people. And you say, how can this make any sense? Like, we can't assume the people that are listening or even understand or have read up on this or have this. So let's try to make it as clear as we can.
Okay.
In the abolitionist position, in all of these bills, part of it is equal protection for the baby, which means that the mother would be charged in the act and fall under the current homicide codes.
Yeah, I think that's what needs to be really clear is that there are already homicide laws on the books, obviously.
Right.
And first degree, second degree, there's manslaughter. That there are already laws about this. And what's so frustrating is that in the Oklahoma Constitution, personhood is defined. Murder is defined. Murder is defined as taking a human life. The definition of a human life in the Oklahoma Constitution is from conception to natural death.
Right. It's probably the same in Louisiana, I'm guessing.
I'm sure it's the same I'm sure it's probably the same in a lot of states.
Yeah.
And then there is an exception for abortion.
Right.
All right. So what these abolition bills are trying to do is just take that exception away.
Right.
Because everything else is already in place. The only thing that's keeping abortion legal in Oklahoma is that exception. Is that exception, and then all these pro-life laws that are regulating how abortions can be done. Because the definition of murder is already from conception.
Right.
So
I want to come back to
that out.
We need to come back to the conception part after we get through with this Louisiana stuff, because there's even like Roe's going to be struck down, hopefully, Lord willing, but there's going to have to be some other laws put in place. I think even in Oklahoma, to ensure people aren't still able to have abortions. But so we go to Louisiana, and it's the same place. It's kind of the same thing everywhere. The opposition, heavy opposition, comes from pro-life people. Now, people may not be able to wrap their mind around that. Why would pro-life people or pro-life organizations be opposing a bill of total abolition? And it comes down to where what it gets down to now is pro-life people, what they say, and it's kind of a what's the word I'm using for? It's kind of a straw man because it's not communicating truth accurately, but it's like a slogan, almost like "My body, my choices," and the slogan is "You want to criminalize mothers." You see what I'm saying? It's a powerful catchphrase that doesn't quite accurately communicate truth, but can skew people's understanding. Like, oh, you want to criminalize mothers for abortion? What are you going to do? Like, you're going to go back and charge all these women?
Right.
And that's not it. The bill criminalizes the act.
Right.
And it says the women who are paying someone to kill their child should be held accountable under the homicide codes.
Mm-hmm.
And the pro-life movement says, no. Women are victims in abortion. That's what they say. That's what they're saying, and they're saying it like in a blanket way.
Yeah,
women are the second victim.
And we can let me read this letter.
Okay,
let me read this letter.
So they have an understanding now before you get to it.
Right. So this letter came out May 12th.
Mm-hmm.
So just last week, right? Was it right before or right after the Louisiana bill was killed?
It's the day it was being heard.
Okay.
So it would like influence.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So this is called an open letter to state lawmakers from America's leading pro-life organizations. And I've got it on. Yeah, there you go. Okay. To all state legislators in the United States of America. With the leak of a draft U.S. Supreme Court opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito in Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization that appears to show a majority of the court may be in favor of reversing Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey, there has been increasing news coverage of state-level momentum to enact laws that protect mothers and their unborn children from the tragedy of abortion. Over the past 50 years, under the shadow of Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton, abortion has taken the lives of more than 63 million unborn American children. But the tragedy of abortion isn't limited to the unborn child who loses her life. The mother who aborts her child is also Roe's victim. She is the victim of a callous industry created to take lives, an industry that claims to provide for women's health, but denies the reality that far too many American women suffer devastating physical and psychological damage following abortion. The abortion industry tries to dismiss reports and studies of post-abortive trauma, but even as far back as the 1980s, scientific researchers and the mainstream media were documenting the reality of abortion's consequences. Studies examining the records of over 50,000 California Medicaid patients from 89 to 94 found women who underwent abortions experienced 2.6 times more psychiatric admissions in the first 90 days following pregnancy than women who gave birth, and 17% higher mental health claims over the following 4 years. In 1989, Los Angeles Times survey found 56% of women who had abortions felt guilty about them. 26% mostly regretted the abortion. Subsequent studies suggest that these numbers may be low, reporting that adverse emotional and psychological effects are sometimes delayed, not surfacing for 5 or even 10 years after the abortion. Despite promises from her partner to the contrary, a woman's relationship will often dissolve following an abortion. The clinic staff is gone, and the woman has no desire to return to the place she associates with failure. Even friends who know about the abortion hesitate to bring up the subject. When this happens, she is left to deal with her pain, her doubts, her questions all alone. Women are victims of abortion and require our compassion and support, as well as ready access to counseling and social services in the days, weeks, months, and years following an abortion. As national and state pro-life organizations representing tens of millions of pro-life men, women, and children across the country, let us be clear. We state unequivocally that we do not support any measure seeking to criminalize or punish women, and we stand firmly opposed to include such penalties in legislation. If the Supreme Court does overturn Roe v. Wade, they will be honoring the unambiguous division of powers described in the Constitution, returning abortion policy making back to our elected state and federal legislators. This will be a tremendous opportunity for states to create durable policy that can stand the test of time. But in seizing that opportunity, we must ensure that the laws we advance to protect unborn children do not harm their mothers. We are America's leading advocates for life. We come from very different backgrounds and perspectives, but we are united in our mission to protect unborn children and American women from the greed of the abortion industry. We've been in this fight for decades. Many of us have dedicated our lives to this cause. We understand better than anyone else the desire to punish the purveyors of abortion who act callously and without regard to the dignity of human life. But turning women who have abortions into criminals is not the way. In 1977, then National Right to Life President Dr. Mildred Jefferson observed in her welcome letter to those attending the annual National Right to Life Convention, quote, "The fight for the right to life is a people's fight for its existence and its continuity. It is a country's fight for its survival and its future. The right to life cause is not the concern of only a special few, but it should be the cause of all those who care about fairness and justice, love and compassion, and liberty with law. End quote. Our charge as a movement has not strayed from those words written by Dr. Jefferson. In fighting for our country's future generations, we are called to act with love and compassion as we seek fairness, justice, and liberty for unborn children and their mothers. Criminalizing women is antithetical to this charge. We will continue to oppose legislative and policy initiatives that criminalize women who seek abortions, and we will continue to work for initiatives that protect unborn children and policies that provide and strengthen life-affirming resources for abortion-vulnerable women. We call upon all pro-life legislators to stand with us. We ask you to continue to act with love and compassion toward abortion-vulnerable women. We urge you to reject any measure that seeks to criminalize women who have abortions. Sincerely for life, and the one that should stand out for most of our listeners is this one right here, Brent Leatherwood, acting president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay, there's a lot in that letter, but I think we can, for our listeners who are kind of new to these discussions, there are inconsistencies on two fronts. So, one, we'll go first, the inconsistency of the law. Like and then we'll say the inconsistency from the Christian view and implications for the gospel and sin.
Can I just show a couple of things real quick that show that this is not just a handful of people? Like this is the elite of the SBC are holding this position.
Okay, yeah. So their position is women are victims of abortion and they don't need to be punished under the criminal codes.
So I've got two things here that we can show. The first is a tweet from Nathan Finn. He is he's a Baptist historian.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's been nominated for the recorder or whatever for the convention. He says,
who would want that job?
Goodness, a historian, I guess. He says, thank you at Leatherwood, Tennessee, and at ERLC for consistently advocating for the mainstream pro-life position on behalf of Southern Baptist. Please keep speaking up for the unborn and don't let the trolls or political opportunists distract you from your ministry assignment. I just want to point out that one of the people that has been criticizing this open letter is Tom Askell, who is the president of Founders Ministry and is running for SBC president. And here we've got one of the elites from the SBC
calling him a troll.
Yeah. And then this one I found was even worse. This is Baptist Press. This is from Ray Ortlund. For the record, maybe it's not. No, Richard Land. Sorry,
Richard Land.
He's
the old president.
Old president of the ERSC.
Yeah.
Richard Land says, this is a Baptist Press article. First person, what's the best way to be pro-life? A Southern Baptist debate. And Richard Land in it says, for the record, if I were still the head of the ERLC, I would have signed this statement. I would have been ashamed of myself if I have not signed it. This is the document that some SBC leaders are using as the reason to defund the ERLC.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Just wanted to show that.
So the ERLC, well, really anyone, and pastors, we'll start with pastors, because pastors are supposed to make up the SBC. We know they do not. It's a total farce.
Right.
Which is why the people who we often call the Baptist elite speak down about pastors. Tom Nettles actually wrote some stuff about this. And he I think makes this case pretty clear that there is animosity even toward regular pastors who would dare to speak out and share what I think is simply a biblical ethic. They're applying the Bible to all of life.
I think what needs to be stressed is that at the convention last year, the messengers adopted a resolution that before it was mangled by the committee, was an abolition resolution.
Well, they only added like a word alone into it, but it still contained the majority of the strength.
It made it a little contradictory, but for the most part, it still had the abolition language in it. And the messengers overwhelmingly voted for it. And then all the elites,
Oh, yeah.
including the ERLC, started writing things against it. And
They
then
don't know. They don't know what they voted
right,
for.
and
They
then
didn't
you've
have
got
time.
then
Yeah.
you've got and then you've got the president of the ERLC signing this open letter opposing criminalization, and it shows what you're saying, that they have disdain for just
They do.
the regular people. These people are too stupid to know
They
what
don't
they
know
even.
what they voted for.
But these were the same people that were pushing Resolution
Right.
9 a couple of years ago on
Exactly.
critical race theory, and no one at that time knew what critical race theory
Nobody
was.
did.
No one knew what they
I
were
ta-
saying. This is an analytical tool. That they had no idea what it was. People even came out and said, "I don't." Bart Barber, the guy who's running against Tom Askell
Said he
for
didn't know what
president,
it
said
was?
he didn't know what it was, and he still voted for it.
Of course.
But here you've got a very clear resolution calling for the immediate end of this wickedness, and the elite are coming out and saying they didn't really know what they were voting for.
Yeah.
They knew about CRT, but they don't know about abortion.
Yeah. So there's major inconsistencies, right, in this pro-life position that the ERLC has jumped onto, because they say women are always victims of abortion. That is the biggest lie. And anyone who has ever gone to an abortion clinic, here's what I'd encourage the SBC elites: get out of your church, stop hiding in your church building, go down to an abortion clinic.
Not the pregnancy resource center.
Right.
Go to the
Go to where
abortion
people
clinic.
kill babies.
Right.
And what you're going to find is, I'd say 90, close to like 99% of the women that walk in there will walk in there and walk out knowing full well what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Will some of them have pressures applied to them? No doubt. Like, they'll be pressured by parents. Some of them will be pressured by maybe even abusive man. There are those cases, but they know what they're doing. They know they're killing their child. Some of them, George, will go there and have their parents watch their children in their car while they go in to kill their other child. And if you talk to them, most of the time, it's just inconvenience. I don't want to have a baby right now. I can't have a baby. I can't have another baby. I'm too young to have a baby. But of course, they know. They know what they're doing. And so it's just inconsistent with the reality. Are there women that are abused and forced to do it? There probably are. And some of them are covering up for sex abuse, things like that.
But if the law already takes stuff like that into account.
This is what's so infuriating about this. In those small cases, and they're very small, most women today shout their abortions like it's a thing.
Right.
They're proud of it.
Yeah.
These
are the people that are standing outside the Supreme Court justices' homes protesting. These are the people that had there was the abortion protest in D.C. over the weekend. What about these people?
Exactly.
Are we seriously saying that these women are victims?
Well, these women have scarred their the one thing they quote to say that women are victims is the psychological. They say psychological trauma and the depression and all the stuff. But that's just the result.
The consequences of sin.
This is you have sinned against God, and your conscience is heavy, and the world can't tell you a way to free yourself from it.
Right.
So you fall into this spiral of depression. And the wicked thing about what the ELRC is doing is they're robbing women from the ability to be set free from their sin.
Right.
By saying, no, you're just a victim, not you're a sinner.
They are very much falling into this secular psychological mindset. Because even what this calls for is for access to counseling and social services. So you want the state that has allowed them to get abortions to be the people who are counseling them on this. Like you said, this touches at the gospel. This letter is telling women who are feeling this way, rightly, instead of saying adverse emotional and psychological effects, say they're feeling guilt. They feel guilty. They are convicted. They should feel convicted. But what this letter is saying is, you didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
You're a victim of this callous abortion industry, and it's someone else's fault. You're a victim. And what that does is it cuts them off from repentance.
It does.
It cuts them off from the gospel. Now you didn't do anything wrong. So Ask Jesus into your heart.
Right.
like
Yeah.
what we're doing is wicked. It's anti-gospel. This is an anti-gospel letter.
Absolutely, it is. These women, they're suffering under the burden of this conscience, and they may not be able to describe it, but as the world tells them, it's just secular. You're a victim. Inside, internally, they don't buy that, right? And it's because God's written His law in their heart. They may not even be able to articulate that. You know, in a military way, there's this strange thing. It's called like a moral injury, where you've done something that you know. And here's how I describe a moral injury, right? Like, say you're given a command, you never stop driving. If you stop driving, you could get your buddies could get blown up. There's an IED on the road. Well, and so to obey that, you run a kid over and kill him. All right. So these people have obeyed, but what they've done is they've killed an image bearer of God, a young one. So they have a moral injury. Are they guilty? I could argue no. But are they guilty of participating in a world ravaged by sin where terrible things happen? Yes. And that causes a moral injury.
Right.
In the same way, let's take the very, very, very small amount of women who are abused and forced into this. They themselves may become a victim of an abusive man, or even of parents that make them do it through pressures like, we'll never support you in college, right? And they go through it. Now, their level of guilt is not the same as their parents,
right,
but they still have the moral injury.
Right.
What we would call, and how can they be free from that if they don't actually deal with what's happened?
Yeah.
I have reluctantly gone along with what these people made me do. But there's forgiveness, and there can be reconciliation, and they can be free from that guilt, but they never can from this secular worldview.
Yeah.
But let's say, okay, people are trying to grapple with this from a purely legal standpoint. Why are they wrong? And we would say they're wrong because we go back to the homicide codes. Right now, if a woman were to be forced to kill her toddler by a man,
right,
she's not going to be charged probably with like first degree murder. Right. If there are all kinds of pressures, but like they have like different levels of, there's first degree murder, second degree murder, third degree murder, and there's even manslaughter, right?
The way this is being framed is almost as if, let's drag a woman out into the middle of the street and stone her to death. Instead of we just want the law to be equally applied to every person, including the unborn. So there is an arrest, there are lawyers, there's a trial, there's jury, there's appeals. I mean, we're talking about the legal system. We're talking about the same legal system for a murder trial for a toddler. Just apply that to an unborn.
Well, here's what will happen if states will adopt that. There's not going to be very many of these trials at all because people aren't going to kill their own children.
Right. I would say that these examples that people are trying to give of rape victims or incest or the people who are being who are actually victims that are being coerced into doing this, that's all the more reason for us to abolish abortion immediately, because abortion is covering up the crime. You're covering up the crime that some pervy uncle has committed incest and there's a baby, and well, I got to hush, get an abortion and we'll cover this up, instead of saying, look, here's the evidence. Here's the evidence of it.
But even with that, that's like 0.01.
Right.
99% of abortions are abortions of pure convenience.
Right.
And that is a 100% fact.
Right. Yeah. What's so ironic is that in the case of rape, we would say God's law calls for the rapist to be put to death.
Yeah.
But if you were to bring that up to someone who thinks abortion's okay, for some reason they don't.
They think it's crazy.
They think that's crazy. Like well, that's
I
crazy.
told
you
you,
don't do that. And what?
Just
like
2 weeks.
we want the criminal to be put to death, not the actual victim, who is the woman who's been raped and the baby. You don't.
It's not. It's bonkers.
Yeah,
it really is. People have been like brain. I told you like 2 weeks ago, Brick had that very conversation at school with two older upperclassmen girls, and Brooke's like, "What? The difference in me and you is I think the man should die for raping a woman. Like you think the baby should die. That doesn't make sense."
Right. What was the response?
It's people. Well, people can't think, man. I'm telling you, people have lost. God's given people over to a debased mind.
Yeah.
And they can't think. They literally cannot use logic.
Yeah.
And they can't even correlate the two. She tried to go with the angle of, can you not see, like, you think it's bad for a man to rape a girl, but you think there's a different human body inside of a woman's body, but you think a woman should be able to like penetrate and tear apart by force another human? It's like rape times a million.
Yeah.
And they can't get it.
Yeah. You want to see a bad take?
Sure.
Okay. When I saw this, I just hung my head. Like, what do you say to this? So here's a tweet. I don't know who this person is. Katie McCoy. Y'all know the ones trying to punish the woman in John 8 were the bad guys in the story, right? What really got me was
the light. Yeah.
Herschel York. That was my pastoral ministries professor in seminary. Like, what do you...
Not a good take.
That's not. That's a really bad analogy. For one, the woman in John 8, she is guilty. She is guilty. She was caught in adultery.
Yeah.
The problem is not that the woman is, they're trying to punish the woman. The problem is they're bringing her to test Jesus.
Right.
For one, where's the man?
Right.
Like, they didn't bring both. Right. And second, they're trying to trap him into saying, go ahead and commit capital crime when that's against the law in the Roman Empire. Like,
right.
They're trying to trap him so that the Romans will come and arrest him. He doesn't fall into their trap, and he forgives her of her sin. He tells her, go and sin no more. He didn't say, go, you're a victim.
Right.
He says, go, you sinner, and don't sin anymore.
Hey, you're a victim of the patriarchy.
That's right.
Just go on your way.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to be a victim too. You know, this is the type of thing.
Yeah. So this idea that they were bad because they were trying to punish the woman is just a terrible it's a terrible analogy.
Yeah.
But we've got
everyone. Here's the frustrating thing where we are right now as a society. Everyone, and it's beyond frustrating. Like, everyone knows what's going on. Everyone knows. This game that people played for years, that this is a clump of cells, like this is gone. God has given us so much enlightenment through the advances of science, which I think is general grace, God's grace to us, that any excuse that may have been even had during the Roe v. Wade is way gone. It's indisputable what is happening. From the moment of from conception, we have a distinct human being, a person. You know, I told you earlier, can you even imagine what would happen if let's say we go to Mars, we break the firmament with SpaceX, we go to Mars, and we find like an amino acid, precursors, right, of the building blocks of life. Can you imagine the lengths they would go to protect that,
right, and
to study, and to say, and this is just the precursors, right? What we have is an actual human life, and everybody knows it. Everyone knows that, and everyone knows what we're doing in this country. Well, not in this country, just in the world. I mean, this is a worldwide plague now, but We're one of the chief offenders. Women know what they're doing. Men know what they're doing. Doctors know what they're doing. Remember the article? John Piper wrote this article. It's like 11 proofs we all know that babies are being killed or we're killing humans. And he started this article by saying that he took out an abortion guy. I don't even want to call him doctors. He took this abortion hitman to eat, and he said, I had all these proofs I was going to give him to prove personhood. And right at the beginning, the guy said, let me stop you there. We all know what we're doing. We know it's a human. And he said he was shocked. But should we? I mean, we shouldn't. Can we really be shocked by it?
Right.
Human beings are that bad.
Yeah.
We're that bad. Where we would, people would absolutely lose their minds if you told them, my dog was in heat and got pregnant. I'm just going to go have a dog abortion. They would lose their minds.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you go abort your own baby, that's to be celebrated. So,
Yeah.
you want me to show this crazy clip that I've got from
I don't
Twitter?
know if we want the clip first or if we want to look at this this tweet. Let's look at this tweet real quick.
All right.
And let me ask you a question after
Okay.
we read.
All right.
There's
Oh,
there's
no.
two. I don't know who this is. Joe Lumen.
I don't know.
I don't know who this is. But she tweeted. She probably shouldn't have. She said the quiet part out loud, Jay. I would rather get an abortion than have a brown child who ends up being adopted by white evangelicals. It is not a kindness to children of the global majority to give them to people who will traumatize them with self and ancestral hatred. An abortion is an act of love.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that lady, I've seen her before. I think she claims to be a Christian. Actually.
Yeah. Here is her follow-up. Here. White and Christian supremacy kill people of the global majority. They kill LGBTQ plus people. They kill religious minorities. Why would I give a brown child who could and likely will? I don't know where she gets this fact. Who could and likely will be queer and may have no interest in Christianity to people who will teach them they are inadequate in most all of their identities. People who think not coming to this world is the worst that can happen to a zygote have never had to experience the excruciating realities of systemic oppression. Not existing isn't the worst that can happen for black, brown, queer, and non-Christian folks. In this oppressive dumpster fire, it absolutely is love to choose an abortion for marginalized folks. And since women, non-binary folks, trans men, and poor folks are all oppressed in this society, abortion is love that can hurt for some, but love nonetheless. Hey, Jay, I got a question for you. Is this...
I think she forgot the word. I think she missed... She put the word Christian and she meant to put Muslim. Because that accurately describes...
Oh, yeah. Like,
because this is...
Christians are out there just killing LGBTQ plus people.
That's not happening anywhere on the planet. But
Right.
it does happen.
Yeah.
All over the planet.
Right. But my question was, are people like this victims, Jay? Is this who the ERLC thinks are victims of the abortion industry? People like this that would say,
I guess that's what they think are victims.
If I got pregnant, I'd rather kill a brown baby. I don't know how she's not getting canceled for the stuff that she's saying. It's probably because she's attacking Christians.
Right, of course.
She can say whatever she wants.
Yeah.
But that's what we're talking about here. We're not, and I think this is the culture. This is the shout your abortion.
Right.
You see these Hollywood actresses that give
awards. Their awards.
They give praise to abortions, because if I hadn't had an abortion when I was young, I wouldn't be here right now receiving this golden statue.
Right.
They're idol worshipers. Like they are offering their child to this demon, and the demon in return gives them a little idol that they can put in their house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the fact that there are Christians in the SBC, the ERLC, who are not able to just call it what it is and just be consistent in calling it murder is mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not even showing everything. People are thinking that the abolition the abolitionists in the SBC, like Tom Askell, are crazy people.
Yeah.
They're acting like they're the extremist for calling it murder and just wanting equal protection for unborn children. Like this. You guys are extremists. You guys are crazy.
This is the
you know,
historical.
Nathan Finn is saying that this is the mainstream pro-life position. If this is the mainstream pro-life position, I don't want anything to do with it.
Well, the pro-life position in this regard is completely secular. We could debate the merits or non-merits of what they did to force this decision on Roe as another matter. I think of showing some grace toward each other, just because I think another place that abolitionists and those of, well, we'd say incrementalists, they would get at each other is over these ideas. But I think this in particular about the criminalization and our women are victims and all of this is where everything is going now, because Roe's probably going to get overturned. And so this is where the argument's going to be. I mean, like, what are pro-life people going to do? Are they going to say, hey, we know Roe got overturned, but in our state, we still want abortion? Is that where they're going? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
That's where it sounds like they're going.
Keeping the exceptions.
Right.
Keeping these exceptions that have kept abortion going, the exceptions for rape and incest and the life of the mother.
Right.
I imagine that will be where it is. Yeah.
Well, these are all old because science, again, has progressed. It's never, the life of the mother, that's not a thing. Like, you remove the baby and then you treat the baby. Like, science has progressed so much. I went to the hospital with when I was in the Army, and I can't remember what week this was. It was so early. This baby was smaller than the palm of a hand, and you could see straight through the skin. And this child lived. He was, this wasn't premature, birth, unexpected.
Right.
The baby lived. It's our technology is amazing. There's no reason that you would say, "Oh, we got to save the mom.
Right.
Let's kill the baby." I told you.
And there is a difference, and some people are having such a hard time with this. There is a difference between a doctor trying to save the life of the mother and the child, and an abortionist going in with the intent to kill one of them.
Why would
we should not have to belabor this point. It is so obvious that an abortionist is trying to kill. The doctor is trying to save. There is a difference. The doctor that tries to save both and the baby still dies is not an abortionist.
Exactly.
The mother is not guilty of a crime because the doctor was trying to save both. And was unsuccessful. But the abortionist is not trying to save both. He is intentionally trying to kill one.
And again, there is not a scenario like what scenario possibly could there even be that pops up? Yeah. However, what you have today is doctors telling mothers all the time, this can be a dangerous pregnancy. This can be dangerous for you. You might die.
Yeah.
You could die in childbirth. I think that's what they told Tim Tebow's mom. You might die and the baby might die. Yeah. You should just abort the baby. Like, they actually put that pressure on women.
Even if that's true, there might be cases where this could be dangerous for the mother. She could have pre-existing health conditions or something. But even if it is true, let's just say, yes, there are cases where a pregnancy could be harmful for the mother. What kind of society are we in when we're saying
mothers should put their life first?
Your life, or the baby's? It should be the baby's. Like,
right.
Where, as Christians, what are we teaching our daughters? What are we teaching people? Parents should lay down their lives for their kids. And what we're saying is, well, if it comes down to you or the child, and you could die or the child could die, kill your child. That's just completely wicked.
Yeah.
This argument should never come from Christians. Christians are people that should say, we will lay down our lives for other people. We are willing to die so that someone else could live.
Yeah, exactly. There's no scenario anyway, because they can take a baby out so early now, and the baby can live.
Yeah,
it's amazing. But even if there's like a deal where they're like, oh, if you go full term, you might die. You know what they'll just do? They'll just schedule a C-section early. Like, you know what? We're going to take the baby before you ever get to that point. They may do it a month early. You know what I mean? Even maybe more than that.
Yeah.
and that everything will be fine.
Yeah.
So this whole idea for the life of the mother is,
But again, just the whole concept, the whole mindset that's behind it is it's wicked. It's wicked to say the mother should kill her baby so that she can preserve her own life. That's just wicked. In a Christian worldview, that's just antithetical to everything we find in the scriptures. There's no place where you find a saint. You find unbelievers doing it, but you don't find the saints ever doing this.
Yeah.
You want to play that video?
I do.
I think this is really. I think this is a great video.
I do. I think one of the things that's behind it, though, and like probably the main thing, is it's just women's.
So abortion should be allowed then.
They want sexual freedom. Really, that's the driver. When you're looking at 99% of abortions being as they are and the push for it, and hey, it's all about the woman's right over her own body, because that's what's coming out in this clip. You're going to hear that really stupid slogan: "A woman should have the right over her own body."
If you're not watching this, you got to watch this video.
Yeah,
because the face on this, the face this woman makes when he asks this question,
the argument
is priceless.
What's behind the "my body, my choice"? A woman should have the right to do what she wants with her body. Is sexual freedom. What they mean by that is they want a woman to have the same sexual freedom as a man does. It's part of the feminist movement, right? So they say a man can impregnate a woman, and he doesn't have to do anything. A woman should be able to choose whether or not to have a baby. Now, we disagree with that. We think men should have to raise their children.
Right.
We believe in this crazy idea that you commit to a woman and then you have a baby and you raise the baby and you support the baby and you support the mother. But what they want is they want to be able to just have sex with whoever they want. And if they get pregnant, they can say, you know what? I'll get rid of the baby.
Yeah.
That's what's behind it, man. It's just sexual immorality.
Jay, your transphobia is really triggering me right now. Men can get pregnant, Jay.
Yeah.
Men can get pregnant.
Well, I think in this same hearing, they had an advocate here saying that men could get pregnant and have abortions.
I believe it.
We should have brought that clip too.
Oh, I believe
We're living in an insane world. But this lady's going to try to do the "my body, my choice" thing, And the guy just totally. It's like for a second she's stumped and she's like just reverts to the slogan.
Well, what you can see when he asks her this question is this is a person that is so bought into this worldview. She knows that she knows the answer.
Right. She just
but
doesn't
she's so bought into the worldview that she doesn't care. She knows, but we're there, but they're not quite ready to cross the line and say, you know what? We don't care.
What it demonstrates, I think, exceptionally clear, is when someone says, "I'm pro-choice," what they really mean is, I think a woman should have the ability to kill her child if she wants to.
Yeah.
That's the choice we're talking about.
Right.
So listen, watch this.
So abortion should be allowed then, by your definition, for any reason, for any purpose, at any stage, right?
I trust people to make decisions about their body, and then when relevant, I think that they need to consult their medical practitioners.
Okay.
And not
If
Congress.
it is, listen, let me just ask you this question. If it is not lawful and morally acceptable to take the life of a 10-year-old child, I assume you agree with that, right? That would be wrong, correct?
I believe that.
Okay.
That is
And
wrong.
a 2-year-old child, same thing. That would be murder. We would all agree that's wrong. Then what is the principal distinction between the human being that is 2 years old or 9 months old or 1 week old or an hour old than one that is 8 inches further up the birth canal in the utero? What's the difference? Why is it okay in the latter case and not the former cases?
I trust people to determine what to do with their own bodies.
Wow.
Wow.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Wow.
So abortion,
Wow.
Full stop.
Wow, indeed. Yeah. I mean, you see her like she knows the answer.
It's the
She knows
party.
the
It's the
answer.
party of science, George.
That's right.
It's the party of science.
I trust people. To
A
do.
baby
Mm-hmm.
is a woman's body, actually.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
And a woman may destroy a part of her body if
yeah,
she wants.
I did not know that. Can
This-
we just go around? What would happen if a woman cut off her own hand?
I'm sure they would probably celebrate it. I mean, this
I don't know. They'd probably throw her into
well, I don't think so.
psychiatric.
Women
You don't
are
think
already
so?
women are already cutting off their own
Well,
breasts.
that's true.
They're cutting off their breasts and
that's
saying they're
true.
men.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Do you think they care about it?
Yeah, you got a point there. Yeah.
Right, this is the ideology of when Paul talks about we're in a spiritual war, and there are principalities, and he's speaking of actual demonic forces
Right.
that can influence the way people think and form worldviews. This is the type of stuff he's talking about, right?
She's saying, I trust a person to do what's best for their own bodies. I wonder where she stands on vaccine mandates.
You already know that. You already know that, man.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. The damage that's been caused to society,
Right.
over 63 million children. 1 in 4 women that walk around the United States is guilty of murder. Did you know that? 1 in 4. You live in a society, and I'm not saying the men aren't responsible, because behind all those women, there's a guilty man, probably a guilty man. We live in a nation of murderers,
and then you've got the psychos that spend their days ripping babies apart.
Oh,
like
yeah.
the doctors themselves.
Consciences, seared. Again, you have to wonder, like, God is very patient and long-suffering, but as we've said a million times on here, historically, biblically, nations that do the things we do, they come under the wrath of God eventually.
Right.
Every time. So we can praise God, I think, for if Roe gets overturned, we can say praise God to that. But very quickly, I think the last thing we should talk about is, let's say Roe does get overturned. This is a little conversation we had, and we've gone long, but I think people will get this. Even in Oklahoma, where there's a trigger bill, abortions are not going to end in Oklahoma until there is a bill or a law put in place that prohibits someone from buying the Plan B pill or buying online abortion kits in a box.
Right.
I don't know how they would go about regulating that with given the internet age and everything, but if abortion would really stop in post-Roe era, Plan B has got to be criminalized. Ordering abortions in a box have to be criminalized.
Yeah, this is where I'm always skeptical of the quote unquote pro-life people that are touting how many babies have been saved through these different processes, because they can't count the morning after pill, because how are you even going to count those? How are you going to know? And so we're not even talking about the Plan B pill when we're putting all these numbers of abortions that have been performed.
Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows? It could be in the hundreds of millions for all we know. We don't know. So if you're going to truly stop abortion, you're gonna have to go after those two. And let's not even talk about birth control, Jay. Let's not even talk about the birth control pill that causes.
Yeah, there are some that contain like a third mechanism that's an abortifacient, and even after fertilization, you could, unbeknownst to you, you could be killing your own child. So we probably better wrap this thing up, though, George.
Okay.
Let's tie it back in, though, to the gospel, right? Because we want to have this position because we actually care about people, care about the children, but also we're in the ministry of reconciliation. This is our ministry as Christians, to go into the world with the gospel of reconciliation to God. And key component of this, as we talked about in the gospel, was man. And if you don't understand that you've sinned against the holy God because the pro-life Christians are telling you you're a victim, you can never find forgiveness, and you can never be set free from your sin. You can never have the weight of guilt removed. You can never be reconciled to God. And that's what our ultimate hope would be for people, is that they could discover the wonderful grace of God that He's revealed to us in Christ. They could find reconciliation with God and forgiveness of sin and new life.
Right.
that there's hope and new life, but it's only found in the gospel. And we don't want to rob people of that.
Well, we want to be consistent with what the scriptures teach. Murder is taking a life. I think that we can very clearly demonstrate that life begins at conception in the Bible. To say it doesn't is to say something about the incarnation.
Exactly.
Murder, there are punishments for murder, and we want to honor God's word. And I believe that God's word knows best.
Yes.
So what this open letter does, what these people who are trying to say, hey, you can't criminalize them, others, they're victims, is to essentially go against what the scriptures are clearly laying out and saying, we know better than this.
We know better than God does. Yeah.
We just want to be consistent to the scriptures. We want to obey it. It's hard in places. It's hard in places, but God knows best, not us.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we're accountable to God.
Yeah.
And so we need to make sure that we are trying to be as faithful and obedient to the scriptures as possible. Right?
Yeah. Good. All right. You want to shut it down for us?
Okay. All right. Well, we hope that this has been helpful for you. We've been digging into more about the whole abortion issue. We want to, again, we want to be faithful to what the scriptures say, and we want to inform you and help you to think through these things from a biblical standpoint, not just from a political or a cultural standpoint. So we hope that's what it has caused you to do. We hope that you will like, subscribe, share, get the word out. And of course, we want this to help you to become more and more conformed to Christ. We'll see you next time.